I decided early on that I didn't want to be called grandmother or grandma or granny or any of those kinds of names because they sound like an old lady, and I'm not an old lady. So I decided I wanted to be called Nonna, which is Italian for grandmother. I have 2 grandchildren, Archer and Grace. I had really wanted a grandson for the first one. He was just very special. You know, the first one, it's such an unbelievable feeling. Archer has been a happy kid from the minute he was born. One of my favorite memories is when he was very little. When we would go walking in the city, we would always hold hands. And he used to always say, "It's non-negotiable," which is non-negotiable, which means his father used to always say, holding hands when you're out walking is non-negotiable. And so from the time he was 2 years old, he would say that. He would say, non-negotiable. Archer and I spent a lot of time together. I love to have him come over, and we don't always do anything spectacular. I mean, sometimes we'll bake cookies, sometimes we'll read a book, sometimes he'll play on the iPad. I must admit, I do let him have the iPad a lot. I think he's a very caring little boy. He cares for his little sister a lot. Grace is much more, what we like to say, strong-willed.
I love you. I don't wobble.
Gracie has a mind of her own.
Go away! Go away!
And you never have to worry about somebody pushing her around, I don't think. At first, she's a mama's girl. And so I would come and she would hide behind her mother's legs and wouldn't acknowledge me. But now, when I come, it's Nonna. Hi, Nonna.
Hi. Hi. Hi.
And she is adorable. She is so pretty. She's blonde. She has this long blonde hair. She's adorable. There hasn't been a girl in our family since me. I was one of the very, very lucky people. I had a great childhood. I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. I grew up in a house that my grandmother owned. So there was my grandmother. There was the man who came to dinner. There was my Aunt Marie and Uncle Landy who never had kids, so they were like a second set of parents. And then there was my mom and my dad and my brother and I. We all lived in this big house. I had this great big Italian family, aunts and uncles and cousins all over the place, and it was just a great way to grow up. My dad was a cab driver for Yellow Cab, and my mom worked, which back in the 50s was not that usual. She worked for Sears. She was a saleswoman at Sears, and they had a great marriage and a great relationship, my mom and dad. And in an Italian house, you do not move out of your parents' house unless you get married. So I knew that in order to break away, I had to leave Pittsburgh. So I came to Chicago and fell in love with Chicago. Well, my mother, you would have thought I was moving to Russia, the way she carried on. And after a couple of years here, I met Paul at work, and we got married. And we were married for about 4 years, and then we decided to have a child. I was thrilled when I got pregnant, but I wanted a boy so bad. And I was about 4 or 5 months pregnant, and I said, holding my tummy, I said to Paul, I think this is a boy, and I think his name should be Jed. Well, Paul was so freaked out. He just says, whatever you say, whatever you say. And Jed is actually a family name. My father had a younger brother whose nickname was Jed. And I always liked that name. I just thought that this was the end-all and the be-all of life, is to be a mother. And I can remember when Jed was a baby, standing at the foot of his crib and crying. And Paul says, what are you crying about? I says, this is so scary to love something this much. I've never, ever loved anybody or anything as much as I love this child. And that's scary. Always not much in the picture as far. I mean, he saw Jed, but Paul and I always stayed good friends. I mean, it wasn't his fault. It was just, it just didn't work. I think I'm independent because I had to be for so many years. I was a secretary. I worked with Bill Stein for 25 years, provided for myself with no financial help from anybody, and I'm quite happy to be, in my own little place by myself. I'm going to do what I want to do, so maybe Gracie does take after me a little bit. There's a special thing about being a grandparent. When you're a parent, you have the everyday ups and downs, and you get, frustrated with the kid, and you get angry, and, you don't do that when you're a grandparent. They're just perfect, and everything they do is wonderful. You have all the fun, and none of the hard parts.
Tell me what you're doing.
I'm going down this hill with no instructions.
Okay, go for it, go! Yeah, go Archer! Woo! Wow!
I would want to tell Archer to believe in himself, to trust himself, and to appreciate his life, appreciate his parents, his sister, all the good fortune he has, and to enjoy his life as much as possible. I want Grace to know that she is a very special little girl, and to trust herself, to trust her instincts, and do what you think is right for yourself. I don't think we have to worry about anybody ever taking advantage of our Grace. I think she'll take care of herself.
I'm crashing into all the cereal bars here at him. I'm backing through all the potatoes and all the green beans and all the potatoes and stuff.
They are the greatest blessings. Jed was a big blessing, but Archer and Grace are the best things that ever happened to me. They are the people that I love most in the whole world. Archer and Grace, I love you more than anything in the world. I always will. There is nothing that you could do that would make me stop loving you.